have seen an enormous outpouring of support from people eager to volunteer, donate, and help out. We encourage people to register with NYC Service at facebook.com/NYC Service, and we'll be identifying opportunities for volunteers in the coming days. And we received calls of support from people and leaders all over the world, including from the President and senior members of his staff. We have a plan for recovery, and that recovery is already beginning. I'm happy to say it's the beginning of a process that we all know will take a while, but this is the end of the downside, and hopefully from here it is going up. A few hours ago, I surveyed from the air the parts of the city hit hardest by Hurricane Sandy with Senator Chuck Schumer and Council Speaker Christine Quinn. We saw the Rockaways, Lower Manhattan, the South Shore of Staten Island, Coney Island, Brighton Beach, and Howard Beach. And that really did provide a clear look at how extensive the damage from the last night's storm was. It also showed the progress we're already making in our recovery. On the Rockaway Peninsula, I walked through the part of Breezy Point that was absolutely devastated by the wind-fed, fast-moving fires that took out more than 80 homes last night. To describe it as looking like pictures we've seen of the end of World War II is not overstating it. The area was completely leveled. Chimneys and foundations were all that was left of many of these homes. I actually ran into Congressman Bob Turner and other Breezy Point homeowners and talked with them. It's very sad they lost their homes, but the good news, there were no fatalities, thank God. Unfortunately, altogether, so far in the storm, other places put together, we've had 18 fatalities citywide as a result of the storm. Restoring power and mass transit remain the two biggest challenges in the days ahead. That recovery is a mammoth job. I know everyone at Con Ed recognizes how urgent it is, and Kevin Burke will fill us in on Con Ed's recovery efforts in a few minutes. Our administration continues to work closely with Con Ed to ensure that all New Yorkers get power back as soon as humanly possible. As to mass transit, Transportation Commissioner Jeanette Sedekan has been working on a plan with the MTA to provide limited bus service starting this evening and into tomorrow morning's commute. On routes that are operational, buses began running on a Saturday schedule with free fares as of 5 p.m. tonight. We expect there'll be more service tomorrow, and that's going to make it easier for New Yorkers to get around town. Unfortunately, at some point, the MTA will start to charge again, but that's the way they pay the bills. We are doing other things to make it easier to get around town. That includes an order I signed earlier today allowing yellow cabs to pick up multiple passengers and also allowing black cars and livery cabs to make street pickups. And we're encouraging this ride sharing. As of 4:30, there were some 4,000 yellow cabs operating in our city. We expect that number to increase. Taxis are operating on a normal fare schedule. Fares for additional passengers are to be negotiated. The driver must quote those fares up front, and was suggesting that a charge of $10 for any additional passenger is fair. Livery and black car drivers must also quote fares up front. So thank you to Joe Loader and the MTA for what they're doing, and to David Yaski, the Taxi and Limousine Commissioner, for the rules, which will hopefully get more cabs on the street. Business in New York City is getting back to normal, at least where there is electricity. The New York Stock Exchange clearly made the right decision in staying closed Monday and today in the interest of safety, and now it believes it's ready for normal operations. Trading will resume tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. The NYSE Euronext building and trading floor were not damaged and are fully operational. Today, we were also in touch with business leaders in all 5 boroughs, chambers of commerce representatives of the city's 67 business improvement districts, major commercial and residential property owners, and the Partnership for New York City, and we're all working together to help business get back to normal. Let me bring you up to date on the other work that city employees, volunteers, and private sector workers are doing to speed New York's recovery. I certainly can't say enough about the work of our first responders at the FDNY and NYPD, frontline workers in the departments of environmental protection, correction, building, sanitation, and others have just done tremendous work. And I want to also commend the teachers and staff from the Department of Education and all of the city employees who are working in our shelters and taking care of their fellow New Yorkers. Deputy Mayor Linda Gibbs, Health Commissioner Tom Farley, and Homeless Services Commissioner Seth Diamond have done a spectacular job leading our efforts in health and human services. There are an awful lot of people who are very vulnerable, and I think this city has done everything it possibly can to ease their concerns and make sure that they remain safe. First, as to our hospitals, we announced this morning Coney Island Hospital is being evacuated. Patients are being discharged or moved to other healthcare facilities. All other public hospitals remain open. Nearly 6,400 people remain in the city's 76 evacuation centers, and I want to thank the more than 2,900 people who are continuing to staff those centers. Anyone affected by Sandy, homeowners, renters, and businesses can apply for federal disaster assistance. If you want to do that, you register at disasterassistance.gov or call the Federal Emergency Management Agency at 1-800-621-3362. That's 1-800-621-3362 for Federal Emergency Management, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The Parks Department has received more than 7,000 reports of downed or damaged trees or limbs. Winds are still high. Trees are very waterlogged from rain. More limbs and whole trees could come down, so I can't repeat this message often enough. Stay away from city parks. They're closed until further notice. And report down trees and trees limbs to 311, not 911. Please, 911 is just have to remain free for making and receiving emergency calls about life-threatening issues. Street cleaning rules are suspended citywide for tomorrow, Wednesday. City sanitation crews will begin to resume curbside refuse pickup this evening, as well as continue removing storm-blown debris from our streets. However, there will be no recycling collection until further notice. Inspectors for the Department of Buildings are inspecting the crane on West 57th Street and buildings throughout the city that may have been affected by the hurricane. Public schools will remain closed tomorrow, Wednesday. Conditions permitting, some senior centers may be open tomorrow. Otherwise, you should expect that they will be open on Thursday. However, you should check first before heading out to one tomorrow. The State Office of Court Administration reports that criminal courts in our city will be closed tomorrow, except for arraignments and emergency matters. And tomorrow we are again asking city employees to report to work if their office is open and they can get there safely. If their office is closed and you can safely, then you safely can report to a nearby shelter to assist with operations, please do so. We are here to serve the public, and people that come in make a very big difference. Finally, as you know, tomorrow is Halloween. Most streets in the city will be safe tomorrow, but some may not be, and so we encourage children and adults to enjoy Halloween, but use good judgment and be careful, particularly in those areas where there aren't any lights. Hold on to your children's hands because cars might not see the children. Unfortunately, we just cannot spare the manpower from the NYPD and other city agencies to host the annual Greenwich Village Halloween Parade, so we are postponing it to a later date. Sometime next week. We'll work tomorrow and figure out what date makes sense given the resources the city has. We are adding additional police coverage to areas that are without power. Our understanding is that the New York City Marathon will go on as scheduled Sunday. We'll reconfirm that tomorrow morning and give you any more news. So on that note, let me turn the floor over to Kevin Burke, the CEO of Con Ed. Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to use this opportunity to thank Mayor Bloomberg for inviting me today. Hurricane Sandy was the worst storm in Con Edison's history. It was an extraordinary event that's devastated our system and resulted in significant outages to our customers. But we've already begun to restore customers. We're continuing to assess the damage to our system, and our crews are working on pumping out water from many facilities and, in fact, receiving assistance from the FDNY and the city's DEP in that. I'd just like to describe some of the work that we're focusing on, and it falls into different categories. At our East River plant down on 14th Street in the East River, we have a large transmission substation which then feeds 7 distribution substations. Those 7 substations then feed another 10 networks with about 220,000 customers. The transmission lines that went into that substation and came out of that substation were put out of service with the tremendous storm surge. We're working on getting that substation back in service so that we can reconnect the transmission lines, and we expect that to take 3 to 4 days. We also have a number of customers in Manhattan and in Brooklyn where we have an underground networks where we proactively shut down the networks to avoid damage to company equipment and customers' equipment, and I would say that was a successful move. The equipment was not damaged. Feeds a couple of networks in Manhattan and one out in Brighton Beach in the Coney Island area in Brooklyn. In Manhattan, it's about 8,500 customers. In Brooklyn, it's about 36,000 customers. We're working now, pump out the equipment, inspect the equipment, and we believe that tomorrow we're going to start bringing some of the distribution feeders in those areas back into service, and again complete that process in 3 to 4 days. There will be some customers whose basements right now are completely flooded. We can't get in there to do the work on our equipment. They can't get in there to do the work on their equipment. We'll coordinate with those customers, and that work will continue. So we'll have to see how long that takes. With respect to our steam system, with the surge, we lost most of the generation of steam from our generating plants to the steam system. So right now, the steam system is active in Manhattan down to 42nd Street. There is some steam that we're admitting into the pipes south of there, basically to keep the system warm. But basically, customers aren't receiving any support for anything south of 42nd Street. We're still assessing the damage, and we don't have a good time yet for when we're going to get the next major plant back on so that we can start bringing steam back to additional customers. And finally, this was a tremendous storm with respect to our overhead customers in Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. Last year with Hurricane Irene, on a company-wide basis, we had about 200,000 customers out of service. This is more than twice that number of customers. Again, we are getting customers back. We had 3 substations in Staten Island that were out of service this morning. We've brought those substations back into service, energized some of the distribution lines. So some of those customers are starting to see service. If there's damage beyond a certain point, we have to, repair those damage. We have hundreds of people in from other companies helping us. We're getting another 260 people in tomorrow from as far away as California and North Carolina. And his work in other areas in the country is resolved. More crews will be freed up and be able to come to New York and to continue to help us. And with that, that's pretty much the status of the electric and steam system. Thank you.
Kevin, thank you. The bottom line is that service in some places will come on the next day or so, but you should not expect the vast bulk of those people that do not have service today to get service much before the weekend's a fair estimate. And Con Ed's doing the best they can. They've got to work with what they have in terms of the underground facilities they have to work in and the complexity of this network, and they've got to do it safely. Before we take questions, let me just summarize for our Spanish-speaking audience. Nuestra ciudad está empezado a recuperar del daño de la tormenta Sandy. El servicio de camiones ha empezado en algunas líneas y será gratis por los viajes de mañana. And with that, we will take questions, sir.
Mr. Mayor, have the President or Governor Romney expressed any desire to come to the city and inspect the damage or come to
I talked to the President today, and I talked to his Chief of Staff today, particularly about a trip here. What I pointed out to him is that We'd love to have him, but we've got lots of things to do. I'm not trying to diss him, but I know he had planned a trip to New Jersey, and I said, that's fine. It represents the whole region. People understand the storm, and he doesn't have to. He's got a lot of things to do, and I was flattered that he offered to come, but I think the thing for him to do is to go to New Jersey and represent the country. And when I was on a conference call with him earlier, he had all the governors from, I think, North Carolina all the way up to Massachusetts, I guess, was the far north, and some of the mayors. And I think everybody on that call kept saying thank you for service. You know, there was a lot of criticism of FEMA back in the Katrina days, and today you hear nothing but good things about FEMA, and they certainly have been very helpful to us, as has our working with the governor. We've used a handful of National Guard people. Some of them carried fuel up the stairs to the roof of Bellevue Hospital, where the generators and the tanks on the roof and the elevator doesn't work. So I think the coordination between the city, state, and federal government's been as good as anybody's ever seen. And we appreciate the help of all of them. Yes, miss?
Could you address what kinds of measures police will be taking in the dark areas tonight to reassure anyone who might be worried about?
You're just going to see a very heavy police presence. You know, the police cars have their lights on, and officers are out there standing around. I expect everybody to understand we're in this together. I vaguely remember the last time there was a big blackout. Diana and I went out and walked around and joked with everybody. It was sort of a coming together kind of moment, and I expect to have a similar situation. Ray, anything you want to add?
The only thing I would add is you'll see a significant number of light packages. We have OEM's light packages, are like portable lights, so you'll see them in areas where they're most needed.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, as you recover and rebuild, does the possibility of this happening again, does that go into your consideration at all?
Yeah, you know, I've had a conversation with the president. I had a conversation with Howard Wilson before, and Patty Harris. Is this a storm like this that's so strong and so unusual, a global warming incident? I think what is clear is the climate's changing. Nobody knows whether it's a secular or secular thing. I think each of these storms, we've got to learn to see if we can't do some things better the next time. There were too many generators that were in the basement of buildings, in Zone A kind of buildings, and we've got to really start focusing on planning for floods down the road and hope that they do not come. I think that most of the things that we did in looking back, we had a good plan, good communications, well executed. When there was a fire, we knew how to respond. When there was a call for help, whether it was a helicopter rescue or getting somebody in a boat to somebody's building, we knew how to do that. The one thing that still is a conundrum when we order people to leave, only about half of them did so, and there were a number of times we had to go and rescue people because they called and they said, oops, I should have gone, but now I can't get out. We've just got to find better ways to impress on people. We don't ask people or order people to leave lightly. It's for their own good. The best thing that could ever happen is you leave and it turns out you didn't need to have to leave. But the alternative is just so calamitous, it can be life-threatening, that there's the one thing that and I don't have any good answers. Some people just are so adamant they know it's not going to happen to them. Maybe they'll watch the news, watch the television, listen to the radio, read the newspapers this time, and change their mind. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned the crane still being inspected. Do you have any more details of what led to what might have happened?
No, but we don't know, and the issue we're focusing on is tying it down. The winds have died down. The experts think it's stable. Having said that, we're not allowing anybody in that block, God forbid it does fall down. Our hope is that tomorrow they'll be able to find a ways to pull it in, and then you cable it to the building so it's not going to fall down. And then you can take your time. We'll have to, or the builder will have to build a new crane up on the roof that reaches over it, pulls things back, and then fix the existing crane there. The good news is the tower that holds the crane stayed fixed to the building, and it was an enormous amount of torque when that boom went over. So they really have a good connection there, and we feel very good about that. But we want to make sure we do it, and the riggers and the fire fighters that do that kind of work don't run any unnecessary risks. We certainly didn't want to do it during the high winds. We've taken some pictures, we've looked at it, and tomorrow morning they'll decide what the next step is.
When they built the top of the crane, was the base of it is strong enough to hold the boom and all that weight?
Yeah, nobody suggests that's going over. The only issue is, does the boom break off? And we've already shut down the services under the street, under 52nd Street, so if it falls in the street, it doesn't start a fire from a gas line or damage a steam pipe or anything else. So we prepared, we think, for all eventualities, and the best eventuality is that we'll be able to tie it down tomorrow, and then it just becomes a non-entity. Then it's just up to the contractors as they work things. Yes, Miss?
Here in Brooklyn, obviously, there's a big event, the Knicks versus the Nets opening game. I know that transportation is limited. Is that going to be rescheduled, or what?
I don't know. I did see a story earlier on a well-known business news service that said that the NBA was going ahead with the 3 games, I guess, tomorrow night, and that they had not decided yet about Thursday night's game. I hope they do it. I plan to go. It's going to be tough to get there because remember that one of the great things about the Barclays Center is the great mass transit that runs under it. Unfortunately, for the moment, not a lot is running under it. What they're going to do, I don't know. But if it's scheduled, I will go. And I think it's going to be a great arena, and it's a great thing for Brooklyn. And so I think he wants to call it. We'll give you the last question, the last, just because you're here. And I'm going to have to pass you to get out.
Can you talk a little bit about the city's insurance, like what it covers, and if you know how much?
City is basically self-insured for everything.
Any damage is covered?
Well, I mean, we're very big. No organization our size, I think, would farm out their insurance. You self-insure, because all you'd be doing is you'd buy the same insurance from somebody else, but then have to pay a profit on it. Here, we just run the risks. And in the grand scheme of things, from the city's point of view, these are things that we expect to have, one-off events. We have one-off events all the time. The insurance that's really important is the insurance for individuals and homeowners and builders, and hopefully they have the kind of insurance that covers them. Some have flood insurance, some doesn't, some do not. But that would be up to the individuals. In terms of the extra expense that the city goes through, loss of revenue, those we don't farm out insurance on that. We would do that ourselves. So the good news is that we are on the road to recovery. Very tragic with 18 people that have died, hopefully no more. And we'll try to take this and use it as a lesson to how to make things function even better the next time. Depending on what we have to say tomorrow, we'll have another briefing or put out a statement if it's nothing really new. But once again, it's still dangerous. Don't go into the parks. Don't go outside the parks under trees. The mandatory evacuation for Zone A remains in effect. We've not had a chance to have our buildings department check every building, and we're working on that. And for those of you that have loved ones in the 45-odd seniors' homes and nursing homes, we're making sure they're taken care of, and those people in the hospitals as well. Thank you very much.
Mayor Michael Bloomberg giving us the latest update on the aftermath of Sandy in New York City. Basically, some quick highlights. Some 7,000 trees in and around the city damaged or down. That obviously complicating the opportunity to restore power. Kevin Burke, the CEO of Con Edison, saying at this point they are still assessing all of the damage, pumping out the substations, and that they hope to start restoring power to some certain areas in 3 to 4 days. They said that they're hoping to start doing that. The mayor